Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. This will be the 15th or so review that I'm doing involving this brewery, and these guys have really made their name when it comes to the New England hazy style IPAs, and I've really enjoyed the examples of this style that I've had from them before. So curious to see how this one turns out, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to a little place called Nora, which is to the north of Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and we're going to have a look at yet another beer from Apex Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Broken Arrow. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and again, it's a New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, really curious to see what this beer has in store for us. I believe this one is a rebrew. This was released a few months back through the likes of Glassbanken.se, as well as in local pubs and things like that, but it was released, this release that I have came through Systembolaget on the 1st of March 2021 as part of the Lokal Småskaligt assortment. So yeah, they released that along with another one, and last month we had the Power Posing Double IPA, which was also very, very nice. But yeah, definitely curious to see how this one turns out. I've heard very good things about this beer, in fact, and as I say, hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Apex Brewing Company before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. You will see at least one more beer from these guys this month, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Apex Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes. So Apex Brewing Company, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Nora, to the north of Örebro, out to the west of Stockholm, and this company was founded back in 2017 by Daniel Gatschitz and Niklas Lundgren. Both of these guys are musicians. Niklas played in the band 59 Times the Pain, while Daniel played in The Voice of a Generation, and it's them that are responsible for the brewing operations, but there are a few others involved in the company as well. So this is Leif Carlson, Ola Eriksson and Roger Hjelm, and they take care of the kind of business side of things from what I understand. But they started off with a 500 litre brew kit and 6 fermentation tanks, and they were just selling their beers in the local area before they got them into Systembolaget. But in 2018 they brewed around 35,000 litres of beer per year with about 25 different varieties, all of which were New England hazy IPAs. I actually don't think this brewery have released a style that isn't have released a beer that isn't a New England hazy IPA, come to think of it. So do correct me on that if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, these guys have not released anything that is not a New England hazy IPA yet. But in 2019 they went on to brew around 120,000 litres of beer, and I believe that also increased again across 2020 in spite of the whole COVID-19 pandemic thing that was going on, but still is going on. But yeah, I first encountered this brewery in around 2018. I think it was the Single Hop was the first beer that I reviewed from these guys, and that was a recommendation from one of my followers. But they've continued to expand, as I say, and as of March 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have produced around 60 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. But they are a very, very well respected brewery these days. As I said, a specialist in the New England hazy style IPAs, but hopefully we'll see some West Coasters, some black IPAs and things like that coming from them over the next little while. I was told maybe about a year and a half ago by them that that was something they were looking at, but we're still to see it. So fingers crossed we can actually get a few different styles of beer from this brewery at some point. But they've done very, very well with these New England hazies, and if that is a style that you enjoy, then I would highly recommend that you check out what this brewery are doing. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Apex Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all those different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer itself then. So to tell you the profile of this beer, it's hopped with Columbus Mosaic Motueka and Brew 1. all of which we've encountered before. Columbus, of course, very well known sort of spicy bittering hop. Mosaic, as we know, 13 to 14% alpha acid, lovely juicy tangerine notes. Motueka from New Zealand, about 8 to 9%. Oh no, that's one of the higher ones. I think Motueka is maybe about 12% alpha acid. I think it's one of the slightly higher ones, but it gives you lovely limey notes. And then you've also got Brew 1. As well, which is a newer hop, but it gives you some really interesting kind of pineapple-y notes. But the malt base in this one is Maris Otter, extra pale, naked oats, flaked and torrefied wheat, and also some spelt malt in there. And as is usually the case with these Apex Brewing ones, this one uses a WLP 66 London Fog yeast. So yeah, 6.5% New England IPA. This one, an interesting hop profile on it. 440 milliliter can. I think I paid about 45 Swedish kroners for this beer, if I remember rightly. So that's roughly £4 sterling, €4.50, and I guess somewhere in the region of $5, $5.25 American. But yeah, nice to return to these guys once again. Like I said, this is my 15th or so review that I've done from this brewery. But yeah, you don't get bored of the beers that these guys are putting out. So let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting. I was struggling to open that with my thumb, but yeah, let's get it out and into the glass. There we go. Yeah, we do have another beer to review from these guys later in the month, but I actually forget what the name of that one is. But yeah, this one certainly looks a little bit less hazy than some of the other ones we've had. That'll do for the moment for the aroma side of things and the appearance, and we'll put the rest of the beer in the glass a little bit later on. But yeah, as you can see with this beer, before the head fades away, it's poured with just under a finger, maybe about a 3/4 finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head there. That's going to fade away and become a very thin foamy layer quite soon, though, I would suspect. As you can see, it kind of decreasing in size already. But in terms of colour, this one is a lovely bright yellow. It looks like a straight up kind of mango juice or something like that. Remember, when it comes to the colour of these New England IPAs, it's dependent on 1, the type of malts that you use, 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour out of the beer, but it is dependent in the first instance on what type of malts you use. Barrel aging and adjuncts and things like that can obviously affect the beer as well, but those two factors are not at play in this case. But yeah, lovely bright mango juice colour yellow, this one. I would say that overall this beer, it's got a fair degree of haze to it, but it's certainly not the haziest 6.5% New England IPA that I've come across. It's not the soupiest and gloopiest of ones. So yeah, good level of haze to this one. Your haze, of course, is dependent on the wheat, the amount of wheat and the amount of oats that you would use in the beer itself. So yeah, that's definitely worth remembering. But yeah, 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, which is nice, and the head is incidentally just fading away to be a really nice kind of thin foamy layer. But in terms of its appearance, when you consider what style this beer is, there's nothing overly surprising about this one. So yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this beer. I have to admit, I am really looking forward to this one. Curious to see what it has in store. Oh, yeah, it smells very nice. One thing I should say as well is that in recent times I have actually been more impressed with the lower alcohol IPAs than I have with the higher, the doubles and the triples and things like that. It's I've just been more impressed with the lower things. Brewski in particular here in Skåne in the south of Sweden, they're a brewery who've really impressed me with their lower alcohol stuff recently, as opposed to the big double and triple IPAs that they've been doing. So I'm curious to see whether Apex follow through on that as well. But this beer, just the first impression of the aroma, and the thing that really set me off to say that was that it does smell as if it's got a nice little bite to it. But these Apex beers for me are always distinctive. They always give you a little bit of a kind of almost woody, farmhousey sort of thing in the aroma, and I think that's something to do with the yeast and the way that it'll be something to do with the fermentation process as well, the yeast and some certain type of malts and things like that. But I mean, straight away with this beer, you can smell a little bit of that kind of woody, dusty, kind of farmhousey element out of this beer. That very rarely transpires into the flavour in these ones, to be honest with you. But you do notice it in the aroma for sure. It's always quite prominent in these Apex beers, and I've never figured out exactly what it is. And this is one of the things that makes me want to take a Cicerone course, so I can, I've got a chemistry background. I graduated with a master's in chemistry, but the thing with the Cicerone course is it educates you a little bit more about exactly what chemicals are at play in beers, because that's something we didn't cover in when I was studying. So I'd be very curious about that. Things like this make me want to do a proper Cicerone qualification, but yeah, the aroma that comes out of this beer, I think is really nice. So straight away, as I say, you get a bit of that woody, grainy, farmhousey sort of thing just sitting underneath, but you do get a little bit of bitiness from the wheat in this beer. If you take the aroma in a little bit more deeply, you do get a little bit of the bitiness of the wheat. I'm guessing that the spelt malt in this, spelt from what I remember, is like a very, very old variety of wheat, if I'm remembering rightly. So the wheat does play a fairly big role in this, especially when you take the aroma in quite deeply. So yeah, you do get a nice big wheaty bitiness out of the beer. You can smell a bit of a soft white bready sort of thing. Definitely some kind of oaty notes to the beer also. There's a wee bit of a kind of powdery oat kind of quality to this one too. So yeah, it comes across very, very nicely. But yeah, bit of soft white bready character to it, a little bit of a kind of bread crusty sort of thing, and as I say, you've got a wee bit of that farmhousey sort of crackery, grainy kind of thing just forming the backbone of the beer. So yeah, to give it the layers, crackery, farmhousey sort of backbone, definitely a bit of a kind of soft white bread on top. At the back of the nose it's more wheaty, in the middle of the nose it's a little bit more kind of oaty and powdery, if that makes sense. And then there is just a little bit, I think it's Maris Otter that was in this one, if I remember rightly. It has a little touch of a kind of biscuity sort of thing to it, and that'll be the English Maris Otter that's giving you that. I don't know if this had Golden Promise actually. I can't remember whether I said it had Golden Promise or not, but yeah, definitely had Maris Otter for sure. So the Maris Otter is giving you just that little tiny biscuity edge that this beer has. But yeah, I certainly like how everything kind of pieces together in this one. It works very, very well. So thumbs up to Apex Brewing Company for this one. I think it works. I think it does work really well in terms of its malty side of things. But yeah, in terms of the hoppy side of things in this, and this is where our focus should be with these New England IPAs. On the hoppy side of things, you definitely get a little bit of a kind of earthiness coming out of the beer. There's a nice big floral aromaticity to this one. I would surmise that the earthiness is coming from the Columbus and a bit of the Mosaic that's in this one, but you get a nice big floral aromatic note in this one. It's not the spiciest one that you can come across. I mean, usually Columbus will give you a big kind of spicy note, but there's certainly a good wee bit of that going on in here. So you can pick out some of the Columbus bittering elements to the beer, but then it's got quite a zesty, grassy component to it as well, which I have to appreciate as well. That's quite nice. So yeah, you've got a good little bit of a zesty kind of grassy quality coming out of it, and I think that's probably the Motueka and the Brew 1 that's going to give you that. Those two are quite zesty hops from what I remember. But yeah, the green component for me, quite deep and floral, not the spiciest that you'll find from Columbus, little touch earthy, and a nice little bit of kind of zesty grassiness in there as well. So yeah, I do like how this one, I certainly do like how this beer goes together. So it gets a big, it does get a bit of a thumbs up from me on the green component. Fruity side of things then, let's focus on that before we taste the beer. There's a good wee bit of zestiness to this beer. You can smell the kind of more oily tangerine notes from the Mosaic, definitely. I feel that there's a good wee bit of zest from this beer as well, and I think that's the Brew 1 that's going to give you that. Brew 1 quite often gives you a little bit of a kind of pineapple-y note, and I think it can sometimes give you a wee bit of a peachy quality as well from what I remember. But yeah, Brew 1 is a really interesting tropical hop actually. But yeah, with the tangerines and the oranges that you get out of this, that is 100%, that's definitely the Mosaic that's giving you that. When you smell it a bit more deeply, you get a bit of a sort of limey note out of it, and that's the Motueka that's giving you that. So you definitely get a wee bit of that underneath. But I think the Brew 1 seems to be quite prominent in this one. There is a bit of a kind of straight up, almost lemony citrus to this beer, and I wonder if that's the Brew 1 that's giving you that as well. Brew 1 is the hop that I'm least familiar with out of the ones in this, so it's mainly a case of kind of looking at it and picking out the things that stand out to me. So there is a good little bit of citrusy zest in this one, which builds a good bridge with the green component of the beer. Some soft pineapple-y notes, a little bit of a kind of peachy element to it as well, and then there's also some nice kind of tangerine and limey qualities too. I mean, this is a really, really nice, it's a really nice smelling beer, this one. So take a bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of it before you get stuck in. It's quite typical for what you would expect of Apex beers if you know the brewery, that little farmhousey element, then some nice kind of juicy fruity sort of things. But yeah, take a bit of time to enjoy that, but we are going to get stuck into this one and have a taste of it now. So there's the rest of the beer in the glass. It got a little touch more hazy there, as you could see. I guess there must have been a little bit of sediment at the bottom of the can. But let's have a taste of this then and see how we get on. This one is the Broken Arrow 6.5% New England IPA from Apex Brewing Company in Nora, just to the north of Örebro here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, just going to say straight away, that's another solid beer from Apex, so well done to them for this, absolutely. Yeah, ooh, yeah, I think that works. It does work really, really nicely. Yeah, and it kind of fits in with this sort of thing I've been saying about some of the IPAs I've had in recent times. I've actually been more impressed with the lower alcohol ones in recent times than I have been with the big massive things, to be honest with you. And this one kind of seems to fit that. It seems to fit that category. It seems to fit into that sort of criteria, if you like, pretty well. So yeah, I like that. I certainly do like that with this beer. So yeah. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, where to begin with this one then? So, from the aroma that we described, this beer actually comes across as quite similar to what you would expect, to be honest with you. So straight away with this beer, you can feel a nice kind of soft white bready quality just blanketing the middle of your tongue there. And that's forming the backbone of the beer, and it's got a little bit of an almost crispness to it as well, which is kind of quite interesting. But either side of that middle third of your tongue, on the border between front third and middle third, and the border between middle third and back third of your tongue, there is a wee bit more of a slightly grainy, bread crusty type thing to the beer, so definitely a wee bit of that coming out. There's some nice sort of, there's a wee touch of an almost wholemealy sort of bready thing kind of sitting on top of that base layer of bread as well. And I can really appreciate that. But on the back third of your tongue, you can feel the wheaty notes coming out of this beer. It's got a nice sort of bitey and slightly thicker wheaty quality coming out of it too. The yeast obviously is going to play a role in this as well, but the yeasty notes, the yeast just kind of thickens up on that back third of the palate there, and you've also got that bit of bitiness from the wheat underneath. But I'll tell you something, this is a really just ridiculously drinkable IPA actually, and I think one of the reasons that I'm probably enjoying the lower alcohol ones at the moment quite a lot is just the bitiness of them. I like these slightly more bitey New England IPAs, but I've also been getting really into lagers over the last kind of 18 months or so, so maybe that's another reason for it, that the lower alcohol IPAs are sort of striking me a bit as well. But yeah, the flavour of this one, I think, it's really nice. It's stupidly easy to drink, but it's you have to remember it's 6.5%, and you'll find beers from Apex that are like 8 or so, and they're also stupidly easy to drink. I think these guys have done a triple IPA at one stage as well that was just insane. But yeah, I do like how Apex go about their business for sure. So yeah. As I say, that back third of your palate is really nice in that sense. It's a bit thicker, a bit more wheaty and bitey and a bit yeasty. But then, yeah, in that middle third of your palate, you've got the white bread underneath. You've got a little bit of the grainy bread crust. Then on top of that, you get a nice kind of smooth, oaty kind of note coming out of the beer too, which I can really appreciate. I really like the kind of smooth oaty note that you get with this. It's a bit more prominent on that front half of the front third of the middle third of your tongue, sorry, which is nice. But yeah, you can feel the sort of smoothness of the oats there spreading back into that middle third of your palate too. But yeah, in the middle part of your tongue, then you get a nice kind of you do get a nice sort of sweet biscuity. You do get a little bit of that kind of sweet sort of Werther's Original kind of thing from the Maris Otter there, and that's the alcohol flavours as well. But in the middle of your palate there's definitely a wee bit of that sweet kind of butter candy Werther's Original type thing, and that's the Maris Otter. But as I say, as you move further out towards the edges of your tongue, it gets a little bit more sort of it does become a little bit more kind of McVitie's Digestive like in its flavour composition. It does just get a little bit more sort of biscuity and things. So yeah, definitely worth kind of bearing that in mind with this beer. But it certainly works. It works together. It works really, really nicely. So thumbs up to Apex for how the malt base in this beer works out. It's really nice, very light and sort of very smooth in a sense, and it's also just got a wee bit of bite to it that you need in one of these slightly lower alcohol IPAs. But I mean, at 6.5%, this isn't the lowest one. The lowest one I think they did, was that called the Scarab? Or was it the Zenith? They had these two IPAs, and one of them was very low alcohol. It was like 4% or 4.5% or something, and that had a little bit of bite to it. But this, for a 6.5%er, this is just really nice to drink actually. So thumbs up to Apex. I've been impressed with quite a few of their beers over the years, but this one just it just sort of rubs me up the right way, should we say. But yeah, just really nice. On the hoppy side of things then, I think we've covered the malty side of this beer as much as we need to. That sort of farmhousey thing that I was talking about, you get a wee bit of the woodiness coming out of the beer later on, and a wee bit of an almost crackery, cream cracker quality to it. But other than that, the yeast I don't think is giving you too many of these farmhousey flavours. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little touch of earthiness out of the beer. Again, I think that's Columbus and Mosaic that's giving you that. As you move further forward, it does get a little touch herbal, and as you reach the kind of front corners of your palate, you can feel the beer becomes progressively more sort of floral and aromatic in a sense. So there's quite a lot of stuff going on. There's quite a lot of stuff going on with this beer, I think. So yeah, some interest. It's definitely a lot of interesting things to point to here, absolutely. Yeah, I do like how this, I really like how this goes together, as I say. The green component for me is really nice. Around the front curve of the palate, as I say, it's a little bit lighter and grassy. There's a wee touch of zestiness in there as well. But I do like how it progressively goes from being earthy, slightly herbal, and it just gets nice and floral. Again, it's not madly spicy like you can sometimes get from Columbus. It's just got a nice deep floral aromaticity to it, and I think it gives a really nice account of itself. To put it so bluntly, as I think it does give a really nice account of itself, this beer. So thumbs up to Apex for the green component in this beer as well. This is one of these ones where I think just everything fits together very, very well. But let's focus on the fruity component of the beer then. So as I always say, on the front third of your tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice, slightly thicker, how would you say, you get that nice, slightly thicker, kind of soft white bready component to it. There's a little bit of a kind of, there is a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty sort of thing in there, which I really, really like. There is a wee bit of that, but you can feel it's got a soft bready note there. And the thing that's forming the base of the fruity part of the beer, I think it's a mixture of the oats and a little bit of the that soft white bready note that I was talking about earlier. But the fruity esters themselves, as I say, they come out in that oily bubble in that front, pardon me, that sort of front third of the tongue. I keep getting a dry throat actually, a bit strange. But yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, there is a wee bit of a slightly more kind of intense citrus to the beer, which is kind of interesting. So you do get a wee bit of a sort of, it's interesting with this beer because you do get a wee bit of a slightly mango-y type quality out of it. But the pineapple, I think the back third of your palate is the pineapple from the Brew 1 that I think that's really kind of dominating there. So the pineapple, it's like, at the back of that front third of your palate, you've got quite a thick pineapple, then the pineapple kind of extends all the way towards the front of the tongue. But as you reach the front half of that front third of your tongue, you can feel the more oily tangerine orangey notes from the Mosaic coming out, and they're sitting underneath the pineapple. And then even further forward, almost on the tip of the tongue, you start to get those more oily limey notes from the Motueka as well. So yeah, I think that the Brew 1 to me seems to really be taking the lead in this beer. And I think, you know, Brew 1's a lovely hop. You don't see too many breweries using it actually. And I mean, there's a whole host of factors that go into breweries deciding what hops they can use and stuff like this. But Brew 1, it's maybe not produced on such a big scale, but at the same time, you know, it might be At the same time, it might just be difficult for breweries to kind of get hold of at the same as well. So that's also worth considering. But yeah, the Brew One I think takes the lead in this beer, and I think it works, you know, really, really nicely. So I think Apex Brewing Company get my approval for this beer. I think it works out very, very nicely. So yeah, I do like how this one plays out. So quite pineapple-y leaning. I think there is a wee bit of mango underneath this one. There's maybe a wee touch of a kind of peachy note. I do get a wee bit of peach out of this beer. But yeah, you can feel that. The Brew One I think sits on top. It comes out in the back half of that front third of your palate. It comes out over the top a little bit, but then you get the tangerine oranges and the limey notes from the Mosaic and the Motueka respectively coming out underneath. But yeah, I think that covers the fruity side of the beer quite well. This is one of these ones where everything just fits together really nicely, and I think that kind of sums up the flavour profile of this beer pretty well too. So yeah, mouthfeel wise then, what are we going to say about this one? So I would say that this beer for me, it's quite mid-bodied, you know, it's right in the middle of the spectrum. Carbonation is very smooth, it's got a bit of an oiliness, a little bit of a creaminess to it. It's very well balanced in terms of its mouthfeel, but the hoppy bitterness you get out of this one is pretty standard for the style. I think about 25 or 30 IBUs. It's somewhere in that kind of region. Remember though, this is my weakest point of beer reviewing. IBU count is not my strongest area. But yeah, the malt base, like I say, is really nice and smooth. It gets a little bit of sweetness later on, and you've got a good little bit of yeastiness comes out of the beer as well. Then the fruits for me are nice and juicy and slightly oily as well. So I really like how everything goes together in this beer. So yeah, I think it works. So well done to Apex Brewing Company for this one. I'm quite impressed with this one. A lot of people told me that Broken Arrow was a good beer to look out for. So yeah, I'm glad that I managed to get a hold of this to review it for you here eventually. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. The Broken Arrow, 6.5% New England IPA. Really impressed with this one. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. Very rare that I drink a beer more than once, right enough, just because of the nature of the channel. But yeah, really enjoyed this one, so I hope that you guys enjoyed my take on this beer as well. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Apex Brewing Company. We will return to these guys once again this month, because we've got another beer to look at from them, and I'm sure over the next few months we'll return to them as well. But pardon me, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from them, and you will see more reviews from these guys. Check out my social media, check out Apex Brewing Company, and I'll see you soon in another review. Slàinte, Skål, cheers. The Broken Arrow, 6.5% New England IPA from Apex Brewing Company in Nora, near Örebro here in Sweden. Slàinte, Skål, cheers.